Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have a book review of the book What Price Victory, a novella collection edited by David Weber. This is a kind of a different book review because this book had no reason to be on my TBR, but I was contacted by Baen Books, asking me to do some things for them to help them out with some things, and I was very interested in doing that. And also at the same time, I had been sent an ebook copy of this book by Baen to review, and so I thought I'll read it. And so I read part of this book as an ebook, and then part of it I read as a print book. So I can kind of talk about both experiences. Although the ebook was like an ARC version, it was an ARC reader, so it's not exactly the same as reading a normal ebook. But I read the book for a couple of reasons that I can't disclose yet. But I will say that it was a different type of read for me, and I'm really interested to be able to talk about this now. I, of course, have only read 3 books in the Honor Arrington series by David Weber thus far. I've read On Basilisk Station, I have read The Honor of the Queen, and I've read The Short Victorious War. I intend to read more books in the next few months. I just have not gotten to them yet. This is the first novella collection in this series, the Worlds of Honor series, that we've gotten in 10 years. The last one, I believe, was released in 2013. So it's a big deal that they're finally coming out with another one. And this book is set in the Honorverse, and so each story takes place on a different planet or with different characters, but it's all set in the same universe. And as you're reading this book, I think that you will appreciate the world building more and understand the world building more. I will admit, world building was a hard thing to wrap my head around in the previous Honor Arrington books that I've read. I now am starting to understand it because these novellas do an excellent job of endearing you into the world that they are set on. So, there are 5 novellas here, and I'll be honest, I think 3 of them are fantastic, 1 of them is pretty good, and then only 1 of them is bad. That is a great batting average when you're writing. You really want to have at least 2, if you're going to have 5 novellas, at least 2 of them should be great. And the rest should be good or mediocre. If you can have 3 great stories, you've done a fine job. Now, yes, there is one that I think is actually pretty bad, but it's outweighed by the positive here, and that helps this book out tremendously. What I'll say is that I'm someone who's new to the Honorverse series, and so I appreciated and had fun with most of these stories, but I think if you're a diehard and you've read a lot of Honor Arrington books, you definitely enjoy this book. And if you're a new person, like me, I know relatively little about the Honorverse, and I was still able to figure out most of it. Especially since there isn't like a character glossary or anything like that. I had to kind of just figure it out based off of context. So I'll go through briefly each of the 5 stories, give my brief thoughts on each one. The first one is called Traitor by Timothy Zahn and Thomas Pope. Timothy Zahn, I've read a ton of his books, and you've probably seen a lot of videos on my channel for him, so I love him as an author. And interestingly, he and Thomas Pope turned in my favorite novella in the collection, and theirs was the lead novella. This is about Cutler von Tischendorf, an excellent name, who gets caught in the middle of a coup attempt against his uncle, Gustav Andermann. What is it? Andermann. And there's other people involved. Eulenberg, who's involved in the coup attempt, and then Gustav's advisors and his son. There's a lot of characters involved, and it is a good old-fashioned coup story. And the point of view characters switches halfway through the story, and it's just brilliant the way that Timothy Zahn and Thomas Pope wrote that. I was on the edge of my seat. I needed to know what would happen. And sometimes when you read a coup story like this, I'll particularly remember the movie Valkyrie with Tom Cruise. That is a movie where you know basically what's going to happen in the end because you know history, and yet you're still on the edge of your seat because you're so invested in seeing what happens. Here, I didn't know. Maybe some of you if you're a big Honor Arrington fan, you know the history of this universe, so you just know exactly where they end up. So it's like reading history to you, but to me, I didn't know where it would go. So I was like nervous about what would happen. And I really felt for all the characters involved on both sides of the conflict. And it was actually kind of eerie how impactful this story is and how much it resonates with some current things happening in our world. So that first story, Traitor, was just superb. And also, I'm taking German, and there's a lot of German words in that short story, in that novella, and so I really enjoyed that. So I gave that short story a 10 out of 10, which is really high praise because I don't give not a short story, novella. These are all novellas. One of them is only about 40 pages, so it's like closer to a short story in length, but all the rest are about 70 pages, so they pretty much count as novellas. The second one I have is Deception on Griffin by Jane Linscold. I've never read anything by Jane Linscold. I give this one a 6 out of 10. It was a mystery story set on Griffin with the characters of Carl and Stephanie Arrington, and also their tree cats. And their neighbor gets murdered, and they have to go. They smell something rotten in the state of Denmark type thing, and they're trying to go figure out what's going on with that. And of course, not as all as it seems. The mystery is fine. It's not superb. It's not amazing. It's just a fine little mystery. Get to understand the planet Griffin a little bit better, and some of the people there and why they act like that. But also, you have understanding the Arrington family a little bit more. This character Stephanie was pretty good. I think that the tree cats, there were elements of it that you see from their perspective a little bit. There were elements that worked really well and elements that just didn't work. So this story was like a 6 out of 10. It was fine. I would even call it a little good, but not amazing. The third story is called The Silesian Command by Jan Katuk. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. This story was really excellent. This is the most Tom Clancy meets Star Trek of all the stories. It felt like this could have been written as like a Star Trek type episode, but if it was more military based, like a Tom Clancy type thriller. And all of the action here was great. And you have the setup with all the military stuff at the beginning, and then it starts to slowly pay off towards the end. And you have the main character who is recently promoted, and she's recently given command of her, she's a Commodore, and all of a sudden there's this super dreadnought that shows up in the Silesia, and there's already some kind of rebellious factions that they're dealing with, and so she's trying to deal with everything all at once and also uncover who's actually behind it all. And that was actually a lot of fun, and the ending actually reminded me a lot of one of the James Bond movies. The first one with Daniel Craig, I forgot what that one was called, but it reminded me of that movie quite a bit. And so that story was a lot of fun, a lot of excellent action, a lot of excellent military stuff. That's the story I thought. I thought every story in this collection would be military science fiction. That's what I thought it would be. And it turns out it really isn't. This is a true science fiction universe that just focuses on military science fiction. But there are science fiction elements. There's a mystery story here. There's also the coup one has the military involved, but that was more of a governmental thriller. And then there's one about people on food stamps type thing. And then one of them that's really about a family. So there's all types of stories contained within here. So that third one, the Silesian Command, was really good. Now, for the next one, If Wishes Were Space Cutters by Joelle Presby. I've never read anything by Joelle Presby. I think she's done one other, at least one other story in the Honor Arrington universe. And this one just wasn't for me. I just didn't enjoy it, didn't have fun with it. The world building on Grayson was really hard to follow when I read The Honor of the Queen. It was really hard to follow here, and unfortunately, it is also pretty hard to follow here. I believe that this is supposed to be the cover image is from that novella, although maybe I'm wrong, but I believe that that's what the cover's from. This story, it was just. you had to have a reason to keep reading, and I didn't feel that as much with it. And maybe that's because perhaps this ties into other Honorverse stories that I just haven't read yet, and so I don't feel the impact there. But it just didn't work for me. So I'm sorry, I can't go further into it. But the final novella here is First Victory, written by David Weber. He actually wrote the final one, and that's a story that is very much a family story. And it's actually about Honor Arrington's parents. Her mom leaves her home so she can marry her dad, and it's Allison or Allie and Alfred, and so that they can move to Sphinx and other planets so that they can work as doctors. And Allison's mom is dead set against it, dead set against her marrying him. And she feels it is completely wrong for her daughter to settle down and get married and not keep sowing the field and doing her own thing. And really, the mom just comes across as totally unreasonable in this story. I mean, it's just totally unreasonable. But it is a sweet story. You see the couple over the first decade of marriage and how their lives unfold and what their newlywed status is like and how the people around them react to their marriage, and also how the feud between mother and daughter has affected the other members of the family. And then it's about them trying to have a child, have Honor Arrington, and then the end of the story is about resolving this decade-long feud between mother and daughter. And I just thought that was a really impactful story. That is the story with the least action involved. There's not space battles. There's not a mystery behind it. There's not a coup attempt. There's not other things happening. It just is about the family members getting over their feud with each other so that they can work together. And I just thought, man, that's brilliant. Man, is that a well-crafted story. So I gave that one a 9 out of 10. So my overall rating for the entire book as a whole is like a 7.2 out of 10, which is a pretty solid rating for a novella collection like this. 3 out of the 5, amazing. 1 of the 5 was pretty good, and then 1 of the 5 was, unfortunately, I think bad. But that's a really good batting average, and I am excited to continue reading more Honor Arrington books in the future. So if you've read the book What Price Victory, let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. And if you've read David Weber or you've read other Worlds of Honor books, this is the 7th book. If you've read other Worlds of Honor, let me know your thoughts down below and let me know which one I should read next. So until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.